Super. I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this LinkedIn session where we are speaking to David about what would be the next content marketing trends for the year 2023, and also a lot of more chit chat about probably what's going to come in the coming few years. David is a startup marketing leader and advisor. He has previously worked at Hubspot and on Deck, and we have a lot of interesting questions to ask him today and some trying to get sneak peek about where the world is headed to in the content marketing space. David, I know this is just after the holidays, so I want to thank you for giving us your time to do this session today. It's We are very very thankful for that, and we admire and appreciate the time that you're putting into this. I want to just check with everybody who's watching us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter. Just put in the comment section if you can hear us and see us well. If you already have some questions for David, please feel free to put it in the comments. You already know what the topic is that we're talking about, content marketing trends for the year 2023. I know AI is something that everybody wants an answer about. Things that are happening in the US, where TikTok is becoming the next big search engine. And of course, a lot of things about short form video content, long form video content, or in general about where is the next Google SEO happening, or what blogs to write about and what tools to really use. So we're going to answer all of those questions for you today in this session. But just feel free to put it in the comments if you're watching us on YouTube or on LinkedIn or on Twitter. If you have any questions, feel free to put that in the comment box, and we'll take that towards the end. We'll keep this as interactive as we can. I understand for people who are watching this in India, it might be really late, so you might be watching this stream from your bedroom or just while traveling back to home or somewhere else. So we'll take a note of that. But feel free to put your comments on any of the platform that you're listening to this. David, without taking much time, I want to thank you once again for doing this. And the very first question, I think this is something that let's just address the elephant in the room here, as to what do you think will be the next few trends in AI content creation. We've seen how with text it has scaled in the past few years. We're already now seeing with how with design and art and visual arts in general, how open AI is scaling up. But what do you think? Will this human and AI work together to create content and scale marketing for brands, or what is your take on that?
It's so hard to know just because AI, and especially with regards to content, it's developing so quickly. I feel like every time I'm on Twitter, I see some crazy new application or some crazy new way that somebody has combined AI into this crazy like new application. I think at a high level, one thing that is inevitable is that everybody, especially in content, is going to have to work with AI in some form. A lot of us are already playing around with that, but I think it's going to be the case where the more, let's say, freelance writers you have, less and less of more and more of the content is going to be less and less freelance writers and more like AI based. So it's just a skill set we're all going to have to develop. Like I was just playing around with a bunch of AI tools over the last couple of months, and I'm amazed at the progress that I've seen in this space. So for me, that's the biggest thing. Like accepting that it's now part of your workflow. It's going to eat up more and more of our current processes. So it's in your best interest to just like play around with it, understand the limitations, and make it a part of your own workflow.
What tools do you use, and are these just while you're writing, or you're looking for
Yeah,
some ideas?
I've tried all of
Uh,
them. I've tried all of them. So most recently, I was playing around with Lex and PepperType, just because in preparation for this, I just wanted to make sure I knew what I was what you guys were working on, and I think I use it across a variety of things. So, as somebody who is building their own consulting practice, a big part of how I build my own awareness for what I'm doing is obviously like LinkedIn posts, like writing newsletters. And as anybody knows, as anybody who creates content on a high volume basis, like it can be very difficult sometimes and you don't feel like doing it. So, it's really
yeah,
helpful to churn out outlines, to take half baked ideas, plug it into an AI writing assistant, and come up with
yeah.
something that's at least an 80% draft. Then you can take it the rest of the way. So that's a big part of it. And for some of the clients I work with, it's polishing up some of their drafts or blog posts for their email newsletters. So again, across the board, it's something that we all need to just get our hands dirty and understand how they work.
Yeah, yeah. But I think the debate about whether AI will take over human creativity or not
No,
is out of the picture.
no,
It's more
that's not
like
happening.
how
Yeah,
exactly how both of
yeah,
them can be friends and use and help each other, and just make that part of your entire workflow is how you
yes,
see, or probably the world is now seeing the next few years in this entire space now.
yes. I think anybody who thinks that it's gonna like, take your job, it's just a very naive, short-sighted way of viewing it. It's more like it's gonna help you with your job. And
Yeah,
we can talk about the future of AI and like computing, but that's not really for practical purposes. Practical purposes, if you're a content marketer, you lead a marketing team, at least know
yeah,
how generative AI works, play around with it.
yeah.
Just worry about that and forget about like robots coming to take your job and taking over the world. Like that's far in the future. Don't worry about it.
Super. Now that we've addressed this very prominent question that a lot of people also commented on the LinkedIn post, that this is what we want to know about, we can move to the next set of, let's say, segment of questions, which is about social media. So, David, I think what we have seen in the past few years is how social media platforms have also evolved to, let's say, more video focused and video first, especially Instagram. Um, where do you see that happening? Will it be completely taken over by videos? Do you think still design or text standalone would be relevant? And especially
Of
what's
course.
now happening with
Yeah.
Twitter, so many macro changes happening with the platform itself. So what do you think about social media trends for the upcoming
Man,
year?
Twitter's not going anywhere. Just to address that point, I know there's a lot of crazy stuff happening on Twitter, but that's not going anywhere. And the reason for that is there's no alternative. Like people can quit Twitter, they will come back to use Twitter. Just like a couple of years ago, there was like a delete Facebook movement. People still use
Yeah,
Facebook. People still make fun of Facebook being like, oh, it's only nobody uses it anymore. It's like over 1 billion people use Facebook, so
yeah,
it's not going anywhere. Same thing with Twitter. Twitter's fine. The
yeah,
question is video going to be the primary social media? I mean, depending on how you define social media, like if you consider YouTube to be part of social media, then it's already there in terms of watch time and user base. So
yeah,
I think it's more like there's going to be a larger and larger variety of types of content we can all consume. Video
yeah,
is an increasing amount of that just because the barriers to entry for creating video are dropping, and possibly even with generative AI and like AI editing tools, it's going to get even easier. I don't think it's going to be the only form, and we'll all be making videos only because there's always going to be demand for a Twitter. Twitter's not going away. There's always going to be people who want to
yeah,
read their newsletters. Like books are still here. Like we still have books. People are still
yeah,
making books, and books are the oldest
yeah,
form. So we'll just have more choice. None of those are going away.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. One interesting trend that we have seen picking up quite a lot in the past few years is how team members, or let's say employees of a particular brand, are becoming content creators, and they are talking about the brand or the industry that they are into. Do you think now, just for let's say an organization, the brand account is not the only medium of distribution, but maybe also through the people who work in that particular organization? Have you seen this trend? Or am I just seeing this in India? Just want to
No,
know.
you're right. You're spot on. And there's a couple of macro reasons for this, right? I think the big one is all these layoffs and all the tech volatility we've seen in the last little while. That has really woken people up to the idea like, oh man, like why am I just posting about my company? Why am I just using my own profile to serve my company? I think it's helped people
Yeah,
understand that this is an asset that I own personally, and it's something I should be
yeah,
developing. And if I want to be leveraging that for the current company that I'm working for, then everybody will benefit because I get to benefit from my
yeah,
company support and all this kind of stuff. But I think the important part is people are realizing that they need to take ownership of that, and that's having an
yeah,
effect of more people posting, and as a result of more people posting, like quality rises to the top. And so the algorithms, LinkedIn, Twitter, actually whatever, it rewards personal profiles over company profiles. And I'm not sure this is a trend that's going to go away anytime soon. I know there's a lot of companies like agencies trying to help you build your company profile. I think for the foreseeable
yeah,
future, people will want to interact with other people. And so
yeah,
if you're somebody who hasn't built your own personal brand yet, you're at a disadvantage because the younger and younger generations will be seeing this as the standard, and they will be using
yeah,
that as a default. So it's important for everybody to be building up their own personal brands. And if you want to use
yeah.
that to further your company's brand, then that's great. But I think first and foremost, you got to be looking after yourself and building that as an asset.
Wow, that's great. I think that's one big takeaway for all the marketers who are listening to us on any of these platforms. Another question that I think a lot of
Hey,
folks
can I just
who
give like
are,
a concrete follow-up on that? Because
yeah,
whenever I
yeah,
tell people, hey, you should build your personal brand, you're a marketer, like it should
yeah,
be obvious. It's kind of like if you're a marketer and you don't have a personal brand, and I'm not saying you need to have like 20,000 followers. If you just don't have any activity online, you're kind of like a fat personal trainer. It's like you are telling people what to do, but you yourself have not taken the action to follow that advice. And a common stumbling block that a lot of people have is like, oh, but I don't know what to post. Well, I just mentioned that AI writing tools make these things easier, right? So go into
yeah,
like PepperType, go into Lex, go into Jasper, go into Copy, plug in some ideas, and then say and put a prompt like, give me 3 ideas on how to improve marketing. And like literally within 1 minute, less than that, you're going to have a potential blog post or a potential LinkedIn post that you can use. So there's really no
yeah,
excuse for anybody to be doing this, especially if the excuse is, oh, I don't know what to say or I have writer's block, because the AI tools we were
yeah.
talking about like remove that obstacle for you.
Yeah, yeah. David, I think there were always two big reasons or excuses for people not starting their personal brand or, just being active on social media. One was obviously the thing that you addressed that, they don't have ideas about it. And now AI is sort of trying to solve that for them. The second one was always, in which probably I also sometimes struggle a lot, is that how do you manage that time when you, let's say, have 5 days a week working, and then let's just say 2 days you're taking a break from work. How do you find that right balance about, okay, you want to put some time into creating content and interacting with people online, and do
Yeah.
you actually like schedule time for it in your day as to, okay, this is the time when I have to post something
Dude, you're
online?
overthinking it, man. You're overthinking it. So, like I just said, posting should not take more than 20 minutes. Everybody has like 20
Okay.
minutes where they can post on LinkedIn or they can reply
Yeah.
to a comment. My rough rule of thumb for myself is every time I log on to LinkedIn, I have to comment on at least one post. Like I cannot just go into
Hmm.
LinkedIn and scroll, and then leave the app. Like sure, that feels good in the moment because I feel like I'm learning, but I'm also not creating anything for myself. I'm not building on my own asset. Like I said, your personal brand is an asset, right?
Yeah.
So if you just imagine every time you go to LinkedIn, you make a deposit, and that's by commenting on a post or adding new people to your network or posting. That's a much healthier way for you to build that habit, because if you're saying I only have 2 days a week to work on my personal profile, it's actually not the right way to think about it. It's like every day you should be doing a
Yeah.
little something. You're on LinkedIn every
Yeah.
day, multiple times a day. At least one of those logins, you should be posting something or commenting. And that's an easy way to build that habit and build that muscle so it gets easier over time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, I am a bit overthinking about it, and it shouldn't be like, okay, it shouldn't go so much thought into it, and probably I'll just, while I'm scrolling, I'll just consciously take an effort to comment on it, or just write a post
You can comment on my posts.
about it. Yeah, that's
Getting that
that's that's gonna
engagement.
be start of that's gonna be start of my personal branding, to comment on David's posts.
Nice. Nice. Approved.
So, David, I think the next big question that a lot of folks had about content marketing trends in the next year was about this macro changes that the whole ecosystem is going through, where budgets are being cut down. There is not enough, let's say, scope for experimentation with respect to, let's say, money that you have. It won't be like, okay, big field events might happen because of budget cuts. So, what exactly do you think? How can somebody who's heading a marketing team for a SaaS business, or in general a D2C business, or any organization out there, how can they really tackle this shorter
Oh, man.
budget?
Yeah, so a big thing that I'm seeing at some of the startups I'm talking to is really looking at their events budget and being like, I don't know if this is the right way to invest this year, just because they're usually expensive. The payback is sometimes dubious because of the attribution. So if you're in content
Yeah,
marketing, this is a great opportunity for you, because a lot of that effort usually gets shifted to content, because you don't
yeah,
necessarily need to like fly people to an event. You don't need to set up a booth. All that budget that was going to go to field sometimes just gets shifted to marketing. And
yeah,
then a lot of the tools that we've been talking about can reduce the cost even further, and then reduce the time even further, right? Because typically what people would do, if you're not familiar with the AI and how making that part of your workflow should look like, you're going to go to a freelance marketplace and hire freelancers. You're going to audition them. You're going to send out a bunch of briefs and then see which one, it's a whole process, right?
yeah,
And that
yeah,
could be low cost, which is not the issue, but the time could take, you longer than you need to, especially if you have some kind of AI writing tool to help speed up a lot of that process. So that's
Yeah.
one way I think about the question of budgets are being reduced. How should we be thinking about it? From a content marketing perspective, I think it's a great time for you to shine. You can talk to your boss, your
Yeah.
marketing leader, and say, hey, I know we are going to be reducing our marketing budget. I have some ideas on how we can increase the output from our content marketing machine. And here's how I'm going to do it, whether that's AI assisted workflow when it comes to your freelance writing machine, or when it comes
Yeah.
to speeding up your own content production with your in-house team using AI tools. Those are some quick things that come to mind when it comes to reducing budgets.
Correct. And let's say a team wants to double down on organic marketing and SEO. What are some SEO trends in this space that we should look out for, or any organization should look out for, especially when there are some changes with respect to the algorithm and just rules or policies that even Google is making, and I'm
Yeah,
seeing some folks are also moving towards focusing on TikTok as like a search engine platform. So what trends do you see over that area?
yeah. I have a very simple view when it comes to Google and like how do I think about the trends of SEO. And I've been thinking this way for like 7 years when I really started getting into digital content marketing, and it's never served me wrong. It's really just think about, imagine you are Google. Okay, just forget about the trends, forget about the algorithm for a second. Imagine you are Google. What is your business model? Your business model is to sell people, to get people to click ads because that's how you generate money. You're an ads business, right? How do you get people to keep coming back so that your ads business keeps getting clicks? Well, you keep serving them the best possible results that you can find. Uh, you you give the searcher what they want. So really, my answer is around searcher intent. Just keep focusing on that. Google will reward you if you are the best possible answer on the page. If you are the best click, if you solve the searcher intent, they don't come back to the SERP and click 10 different links. I think really just focus on that. Ignore algorithm changes because it's going to change. You don't want to be the person who is keeping up with search engine land. Like, what did they change this time? Oh my God, I have to like redirect and all this kind of stuff with my blog. Forget about that. Just think about searcher intent. Are you being honest with yourself that you understand your ICP and you understand what they're looking for when they click the SERP? Generally, if you do those two things, serve your ICP and serve the intent, you are safe from pretty much every algorithm change. So I wouldn't focus too much on that. And with regards to TikTok specifically, it just depends on your target audience. I think right now it's for people who are comfortable with um, mobile first and video first as their search behavior. Right now, we associate TikTok with like Gen Z folks who maybe are on the younger side of things. I don't know if that's always going to be true. Like, I know people who are millennials and up starting to use TikTok more and more. But it goes back to my point, right? What does your ICP do? And are you doing your best to serve the search intent? With Google specifically, they're starting to serve TikTok in the SERP. But then if you're finding that your ICP is spending more time on TikTok than Google, or they are disproportionately using that as their first point of search as opposed to Google, then maybe you need to be
Yeah.
investing in that. But that's not the case for everybody. Like, I'm hesitant to say every
Yeah.
B2B SaaS should have a TikTok strategy because I don't know who is going into TikTok and typing in like marketing SaaS budget templates and then
Yeah.
valuing those like 1 minute videos over like an Excel document. So again, sorry,
Yeah.
that was a long answer. Short answer is don't worry
Yeah.
too much about the algorithm. Just focus on your ICP and
Yeah.
the search intent. If TikTok is relevant to your ICP, then sure, invest in that, but it's not always going to be the case.
Yeah, yeah. And while you've been answering, I think I also had like a nostalgia or like flashback that over the past few years, the way we resonate with the word content has also changed. Like content initially was just, let's say, blogs, but now it has probably become podcasts or short form video or TikToks or YouTube video as well. What is content for you, if you want to answer? I know this is a really broad question,
Yes.
but what what if let's say you had to put something under the umbrella of content as a word, what all would you put?
I I mean, I can answer this from my own perspective. Whenever you think about this, I think it's useful to think about the context of your business and what your target audience cares about. Because if I say content equals podcast, some people might be listening to this and be like, oh, we need a podcast because content marketing is podcast. I think it's the ideal situation is you're thinking about your ICP. What is in their information diet today? Is it newsletters? Is it podcasts? Is it YouTube videos? Is it TikTok? Is it magazines? Is it radio? I don't know, right? All of that technically is content. All you want to do is be showing up where they are consuming their information diet, and then making sure you're serving them media that is relevant to that channel. Because if you find that your ICP loves newsletters, then the only content you should be thinking about maybe is newsletters and stuff that appears within the newsletter ecosystem. But if your ICP is, I don't know, kids, then maybe it's like YouTube videos, and you should be thinking about pre-roll YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. Or out of home. Technically, I would consider that content, especially if it's part of some greater campaign. So think about what your ICP cares about, what's in the information diet, how can you influence them, and whatever definition of content you want that fits that description is going to be the most practical.
Yeah. Another interesting, let's say, rise or trend that has been seen is a lot of B2B brands or in general organizations focusing on community building. Now, the umbrella of community building itself is diverse, like some treated under marketing, some treated under customer support. Where do you see how do you think brands would be utilizing the potential of community building maybe in the coming years? Have you seen any trends? Do you have any thoughts about this?
Sure. Do you want me to answer this from a content angle or just in general?
No, in general, from a brand marketing, or
Yeah.
just in general from a marketing angle.
Yes, I think community has always been there. If you think about how in the early days of the web, we had like GeoCities, LiveJournal, Tumblr. Like community has always been there, but I think now it's easier for people to organize and hand raise into communities of like-minded people, like self-organizing. So it's starting to become a way for companies to build like early traction. You plug into a community that's already self-organized, so there's like a lot of intent there. Then if you find a way to organically show up and add value to those communities, then it's a way for you to kickstart the growth of your company or awareness of your product. That being said, it's difficult because it doesn't easily scale like something like paid ads, where you can say, I'm going to have a paid ads growth strategy, and all I got to do is throw money at LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, right? With communities, there's a very human element in the way. And so while it's an important part of growing your company, it's going to be a much slower and a much more high touch fashion to do so.
Yeah. There's a relevant question here that I'm seeing on our YouTube comments, which is now brands are moving away from having that very formal voice to their content to more empathetic and very humane kind of a personality of a particular brand on social media or in general with their content. Is this like a trend that has happened in the past few years? Will this continue, or we might see brands going back to having that formal messaging? What are your thoughts on this?
I think it is continuing. There's this tweet that I saw that said like people want to be brands and brands want to be people. So I think that's a very good way of putting it. What's contributing to this is what we talked about at the beginning, right? You said that personal profiles are contributing more to company awareness than brand profiles, and I think it's related to that. People are recognizing that social media managers are recognizing that the way to increase awareness of the company is by having the employees post, and then what's happening is that the brand voice therefore becomes more personal, because since we all are using social media, when you see a brand post, your brain automatically recognizes, this is like corporate speak, this is a company talking to me, and so automatically it discounts it. And I'm not surprised that algorithms therefore reduce the reach of company posts because we're less likely to engage. That being said, I'm not entirely sure that brand social media managers are just going to like start talking completely like humans. What's, in my opinion, going to happen is it's going to like split. So employees are going to sound like humans and they will take the human side of things, but the brand is not going to like suddenly sound like humans. It should just sound like the brand. Like every company has its own voice and tone. And I think what's more important to be consistent to that and amplify that, as opposed to trying to sound like a human being. So I think that's how it's going to split. Brands should still sound like brands because we all know it's not a person. So as long as it's consistent with the message, the narrative that it's trying to push, then I think that's
yeah,
the right way to do it. If you do that in a
yeah,
casual tone or a serious tone, it depends on the voice and tone of your brand. Like a bank should not be like making
yeah,
jokes on their,
yeah.
I mean, maybe they do, it depends on the bank's brand, but I think that's how it's going to split up.
Yeah, David, I have one small follow-up question on that, and this is also something that I've noticed in across the world with few companies, uh, is that they have like an independent media arm or a content arm under the organization, which is independently talking about relevant topics itself, but it doesn't stick to, let's say, a particular brand guideline or follows the rules of that brand itself. But it's like a media arm to the bigger organization. Uh, do you have any thoughts about this? Do you think this is a pro or a con for a brand to go about it? They can leverage broader topics or have more independence with their marketing.
If you're asking the question, should every brand do this? I mean, I think the answer is always going to be yes. If you say, hey, there's this thing that's working, should brands do it? I mean, the answer is obviously yes, right? But I think the real question is like, does your company have the capability to do that? Does it have the willingness to invest in something like that? Because it's not like you just decide to do it and then 2 months later you have it. It's like a multi-year investment, right? And what
Yeah,
are the opportunity costs of you doing that versus something else? So
yeah,
if you have unlimited resources, yes, please start your own podcast, like create your podcast network, create a YouTube channel. But that's not the question, right? The question should be, is this appropriate for my company's context? Do I have the resources to do this? Do I have the ability to do this? Does somebody in my executive team or my leadership team have the editorial taste to make this work?
yeah,
Is this the best use of my company's resources? Because maybe you could build a media brand, but it's possible that your primary growth strategy should actually be like outbound sales, you know? So I
Hmm.
think you have to evaluate it against the opportunity costs in your own internal company's capabilities before you just buy into this. So
Yeah,
that's kind of my real answer. To answer your question directly, yes, it's totally a trend. It's much
yeah,
easier said than done. And I saw the inner workings of this at HubSpot when we bought the Hustle.
yeah,
It's, HubSpot, as many people know, is like a content brand. It founded the inbound marketing thing, right? And even then,
yeah,
like creating a media machine was so hard that we bought a media company, just because it is just that hard and it's just that idiosyncratic of a function. So
yeah,
it is easier said than done. It would be great if everything lines up for you that you can do it. But that being said, it might not be the best opportunity for you to take a hold of. So always just weigh that whenever you see something that looks like a best practice, look like a trend, you have to ask yourself whether it's
yeah,
appropriate for your situation.
yeah, yeah. Got it. David, I'm gonna pick up the one last question, and I know we are running short on time. From Twitter, where Kunal is asking, how are the future content marketing rules going to evolve? Like in the past, we have seen head of content, chief content officer. There have been new and new roles because of, let's say, somebody starting a media arm. There is a podcast specialist in the marketing team full time. What are some of the trends that you you think you would see in the coming few years in the content space?
I like the idea that related to our last thing about every brand should have a media company. Maybe not a full-fledged media company, but there should be like an editor in chief as a function. And that doesn't just mean head of content, because in a lot of ways, head of content is the person who manages the production. And so is like a producer
Yeah,
of
yeah,
things. Editor in chief is like the person who maintains the narrative and the messaging and the perception of the company and make sure that is resonant across the product marketing function, across the product itself, and across the content and the potential media arm it produces. So I think that's a function and a skill set that is rare currently,
yeah,
but is we're going to see more and more, especially as we as humans, thanks to AI, like go up the value chain. We're not going to
yeah,
be writing most of the articles. Podcast editing is going to get easier and easier. Video production will get easier and easier. We have to think higher and higher value and be more and more strategic and plug into different parts of the business and be able to talk to different departments. So not just the marketing team, but also understand how content impacts sales, how it impacts the product, how potentially impacts customer success. And I think there's a skill set that's missing that I'm at least not seeing in a high amount, which is like this editor in chief, making sure that the the narrative of the company is consistent across all touch points. Right now, that typically rests within the founders or like maybe sometimes the
Yeah.
chief product officer, but
Yeah.
somebody within the content function and content background is well suited for that role. And I think people who can start to develop that and raise their hand to do that for the company are going to have a lot of success in the coming years.
Wow, super. A lot of creators who are part of the Pepper community are listening to this, and this is a great takeaway for them. If you're already thinking about what you want to do next, maybe editor in chief could be like the thing that you should probably follow. But David, thank you so much for all your answers. I think this was really, really insightful and just gave us a wholesome perspective about what to expect in the coming year, and what probably we should do or we shouldn't do. And I think that one big key takeaway for me was, don't start something and then end it in 2 months. I think that's very, very important.
Yeah.
As marketers, sometimes we tend to follow experiments that we are very passionate about, and then in 2 months we figure out that okay, this is not going to scale, this is not going to work out. So I think that is something, especially when it's a tight budget situation coming up in the next few months or years for us. We should have that wholesome perspective about what we really want to do and what will bring the biggest ROI, as content team, as the marketing team.
Yeah, Pawan, can I just
Uh,
end off with another thought there
yeah,
is, I think if a lot of content creators are watching this or listening to this, I think the biggest piece of advice I could give, whether it's trends or not, is just like create something on your own, personal brand, blog, podcast, something like that, and play around with all these tools that we're gonna keep seeing month over month. You have a disproportionate advantage as a content creator to create an asset for yourself, either as your personal brand or as something for your company. But the most important part is you're playing with tools out there, you're investing in your own asset, increasing your online surface area. And it's like the best time in the history of the internet to do it, because we're about to see an explosion of content by people who are going to discover AI writing tools and all the generatives that's going to come in the future. So I think the more you can get ahead of that trend, the more practice you can get ahead of everyone, build your own credibility and own expertise in content creation and AI assisted content creation, the better off you're going to be, as we see like crazy changes to come in the tech ecosystem in the next little while.
David, I found my idea about a LinkedIn post, 9 key
Okay.
takeaways from David's LinkedIn session. Uh, that's what I'm going to put out, as, let's say, the starting of my personal brand journey from tomorrow
Nice. When
onwards.
are you going to publish it?
Uh, this is late night for me, so tomorrow morning.
Okay.
That's
Tag
that's
me
when
so
you'll
I know
see
you did
my
it.
yes.
Nice.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, David, for taking out the time. This was really interesting and insightful. Everybody who joined in on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, we thank you for your time, and we'll keep doing such insightful sessions in the coming few weeks as well. If you liked any of the takeaways that David has shared, please go check out his LinkedIn account. He's active on Twitter, LinkedIn, across all these platforms. Feel free to DM him. David, I hope people can DM you directly on LinkedIn if they have any questions. Yes,
Absolutely.
super. So
Yeah.
if you folks have any more questions that was not addressed or picked up during this conversation, feel free to DM him directly. And I will share my 9 key takeaways from this session tomorrow morning India time, so you all can check it out if in case you missed that. But thank you so much, David, once again for doing this. This was really, really fun.
Love it. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Thank you so much, David, and thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you again next week.